Let's bring some oxygen and blood flow to your hips. If you want some hips that feel like some grass-fed butter by the end of this video, I'm about to tell you exactly what you need to do to get that feeling. Hi, I'm Leanne and I teach you how to get buttery and strong joints. So if that sounds like something that you're into, subscribe and stick around. Now let's jump right into today's buttery hip class. All you need is a floor. Here's what you're going to do. We're going to start in 90-90 sitting on the floor. How do you know you're in 90-90? Your front knee is lined up with the center of your chest, and that heel is lined up with your knee, creating 90 degrees. Back leg, the knee is lined up with the center of your hip, and heel is lined up with the center of your knee, creating 90 degrees. 90-90, right? Let's get into our stretch. Today's class is focused on hip external rotation. So we're going to place our hands on the ground just out in front of us. Now, some of us are already going to feel a stretch just from that. If that's you, amazing. Hang out in that stretch for a second. If you're somebody who comes here and you're like, I need a little bit more, here's what you're going to do. Two things. One, puff your chest forward. The last thing we want to do is bring our chest down here towards your leg. I know we see this online all the time, but it's actually your spine that brings you farther down here, not your hip. So if you want to get deeper into the hip without using your spine, puff your chest forward. Or imagine there's an object just out of your reach that you're trying to reach your nose towards. This is called bowing the stretch. And we're all going to feel the stretch better with a tall chest and then really just pushing that chest forward. Think tall, proud, puff that chest out. And there's that great hip stretch right there. Now, if you still need a little bit more, think about tilting your pelvis. So you're going to think send tailbone to sky. It's as if you're going to do this, right? Create that arch in your low back. Except for in that position, you're not going to be able to move very far. So puff out that chest. Think about creating an arch in your low back. And now we have a significantly deeper stretch into our external rotation of our front hip. And it feels so good. So now we're just going to take a couple deep breaths here. I want you to take a deep breath in and take a 5 count on the exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Could you sink in a little bit deeper because of that long exhale? Same thing again. Deep breath in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, trying to sink slightly deeper on that exhale. We have one more breath. Breath in. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that we're nice and deep into our hip stretch, here's where it gets really good. This is what creates the butter, is when we're strengthening our tissue in its a lengthened position. How are we going to do that? Imagine that there's a scale underneath your front leg and start driving your leg down into it. So you're pushing your knee into the floor, your shin into the floor, your foot into the floor. Everything on this front leg is driving down into the floor. Nothing else in your body is changing. Ramp up that contraction. If your scale that's underneath your legs has a hypothetical 10 pounds of push, can you make it say 12 just by pushing harder down into the floor? Can you make it say 14? Can you make it say 16? Now push as hard as you can. How hard can you drive that front leg into the floor? Relax. Breath out. And just be in your stretch. What we're doing there is called a Pails contraction. And that brings blood flow and oxygen to deep inside the hip capsule by using that forced contraction. You are giving your body a signal. Hey body, this tissue here, it's important. Send blood flow here. Put down more healthy tissue here. That is what that contraction is signaling from your brain and your body to connect together. We're going to do the same thing one more time. Ready? Go for it. Start driving everything down into the floor. Driving your knee down into the floor. Connect with your shin, driving your shin down into the floor. Connect with your foot. Drive your foot down into the floor. Everything. Now we should feel lots of contraction in that outer hip, into your glutes. Everything that was just being stretched, now being strengthened. Continue to push. Can you ramp that contraction up a little bit more? The more you put into this, the more you get out of it. Press as hard as you can for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Completely relax. And just be in your stretch. We're going to take a couple breaths. One more. Big breath in. And exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. We're going to just go ahead and move our torso up a little bit. Give our hip a second to come out of that stretch before we do one more thing on this side. The next thing we're going to do is called a kinetic stretch, and it has 2 levels. We'll all start at level 1, and then if that feels good to you, you can always pop into level 2. I'll show you exactly what I mean. All right, so we're thinking chest forward. Now I want you to imagine that there is a carrot dangling just out of your reach, and you need to touch that carrot with your nose. This is our game. So you're going to reach forward and imagine this carrot is right here. It's just out of your reach. You're like, I'm trying to reach it. I'm fighting for it, but like it's just, I can't quite get there. And you're going to push your knee into the ground to push yourself out. And that we are going to do 5 times. Now, level 1 is doing that with a kickstand. That means hands on the ground. All right, so we're going to do that all together. Hands on the ground, reach forward, find your carrot, reach for it. Can I get my nose to touch my carrot? How far can I go? Can I reach a little bit farther? Drive your knee into the ground to push yourself out of the stretch. Now, if that felt really, really good, you can try a level 2. A level 2 is no hands. So it's the exact same thing, but now your body's having to hold you up. So your call, stick to level 1 or bring those hands off the ground and do the same thing. Nose forward, reach for that carrot. How far can you go? Can I go a little farther than I did on my last rep? Drive your knee into the ground to come out. 2 more rounds. Ready? Nose forward, reach for it. Can I get farther? Can I get farther than I did in that last round? Drive the knee into the ground, come out. 1 more. Nose forward. Now this is our last round. So really try to reach for that carrot. Our chest is tall, our nose is reaching forward. Drive your knee into the ground. All right, hips already feeling kind of spicy from that. We're gonna go ahead and just flip over to the opposite side. Just change directions here. Flip it on over. We're back in 90-90, so chest and knee are in line. Heel and knee are in line. Step number 1, find your stretch. Finding your stretch is going to be puff that chest up and forward and send that tailbone to the sky. So quick reminder, we are not leaning down towards our leg, even if we've seen that online before, because that is our spine, not our hip, that is getting us deeper into the stretch. And this is a hip stretch, so let's use our hip, right? All right, now we're going to take our couple deep breaths before we start our contraction. So remember, big breath in, and 5 count on the exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can you sink slightly deeper into your stretch? Big breath in. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can you get slightly deeper into your stretch? Big breath in. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can you get slightly deeper into your stretch? You may notice that with those really long exhales, you're like, oh yeah, I do get mildly deeper. That is because it is working with your central nervous system to help relax your hip. So we're ready to bring some blood flow and some oxygen deep into that hip. Let's go. Start pushing your leg down into the ground. Connecting with your knee, driving your knee into the ground. Connecting with your shin, driving your shin into the ground. Connecting with your foot, driving your foot into the ground. Imagine that there's a scale that is underneath that shin, and you're creating a number on that scale as you push down. Try to have that number increase. Think about that. Visualize it. That number is moving up the harder you push. Keep pushing. Keep seeing that number increasing. Keep going for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Big breath in. And exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And again, big breath in. Exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. We have one more push on this side. Ready? And go. Imagine that scale again, and that number is slowly increasing. You're slowly pushing harder, slowly pushing harder. Entire leg is driving into the ground. Your glute is firing. Your outer hip is firing. Everything that was just being stretched is now being strengthened. We are sending blood flow to that area, giving the body a signal of what we want it to do with that tissue. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Take a breath. All right. Slowly moving out of that. Take a breath up here, and then we're going to go back into that kinetic stretch. Remember our carrot? Let's find that carrot. 5 reps. So you can go ahead and start on level 1 or level 2, whatever you did on the other side. You're going to go ahead and do that on this side. So let's go ahead, send that chest forward. Imagine you're trying to tap your nose, that carrot that's just out in front of you. Can I reach a little farther? Drive your knee into the ground to push yourself out. Same thing again. Come forward. Search for my carrot. Can I come more forward? Sometimes I'll picture that I'm a donkey while I'm doing this and I'm looking for my carrot. Drive your knee into the ground to push yourself out. 3 more reps. Coming forward. Back to donkey mode, looking for that carrot. How far can I go? Can I go farther on rep 3 than I did on rep 1? Drive your knee into the ground to push yourself out. 2 more reps. Here we go. Chest forward, nose forward, everything searching for that carrot. Drive your knee into the ground. Take a breath. Last rep. On our last rep, how far can you go? Really imagine that you can lengthen your spine. You can push forward. How far can you go? Reach for something. It's just out of your reach. Drive your knee into the ground. Push yourself out. Beautiful. All right. We have one more thing on the docket today in order to create super buttery hips. We just opened your hips. Now we're going to strengthen your hips with some hip cars. Before we get into that, I'm just going to say real quick, if this is making your hips feel really good, you are going to love my hip mobility lab. Check out the caption down below. My hip mobility lab is in there, and it is 6 weeks of programming designed to make your hips feel amazing. All right, let's jump right into our hip cars. Come down, sideline. What is a hip car? A hip car is a controlled articular rotation. What does that mean? It means that we are strengthening our hip all the way around it. We're going to use the entirety of your hip capsule. All right, this is going to get every single cell all the way along your hip capsule awake. And that's why it makes it feel so good.
Let's take you through your first rep of a half hip car. We're going to take your hip through a big circle. So it's going to be pulling your knee towards your shoulder. Open up through the hips. You get a really good squeeze on the side right here. Pull the knee behind you and then just come back around. So it's a big circle, right? Now, the goal with this, though, is that we're not going to use our torso. We have to keep it 100% in the hip for it to get the most value in the hip. What does that mean? Pull your knee towards your shoulder. As you open your leg up and squeeze the side of your hip, notice something. Did you start to bring this hip bone back? Or are they still stacked? Take a look. Look for a second. Are your hip bones completely stacked? Or did the top one start to open up? If the top one started to open backwards, you're using your spine. So let's get them stacked so you get that squeeze in the side of your hip, and then keep going. Pull that knee back behind you, little glute squeeze, and continue through your circle. Knee towards shoulder, open up, check your hips are stacked, pull the knee behind you, and continue your circle. 2 more. Knee towards shoulder, open up, squeeze the side of your hip, pull the knee back, continue your circle. Last one. Knee towards shoulder, open up, squeeze that hip, pull that knee back, continue through. Let's do the other side. Okay, same thing on the other side here. Clasp those hands together so that you're sturdy through your torso. This helps us stay strong and sturdy. I'm gonna pull that knee towards shoulder. Open up, good squeeze here. Do that double check. Are your hip bones stacked or did this one start to come backwards? Continue the circle by pulling your knee behind you and back through. Knee towards shoulder. Open up through that hip. Good squeeze. Pull that knee behind you and back through. 3 more reps. Knee towards shoulder. Open up through the hip. Squeeze the side of the hip. Pull the knee behind you and back through. Last 2. Knee towards shoulder. Open up through that hip. Pull the knee behind you. And we're going to do 1 more big circle. How big can you make your circle without your spine getting involved? That is our goal here. Okay. So if you just did that full class and your hips feel even a little bit more buttery, please give me a thumbs up, hit that like button, as it does really help in this algorithm world. Leave me a comment, let me know how you enjoyed this class, or if you have requests for future class. And of course, hit subscribe so that you can get the weekly mobility walkthrough to your inbox every single week.